The goings-on in merry old England greatly affected the goings-on in North America, especially its British colonies, land development, trade, commerce, and settlements. Before he died in February 1685, King Charles II was received into the Roman Catholic Church, but there is good evidence that since before his restoration, he had been a secret Catholic at heart. He was buried in Westminster Abbey. Just as he had always wanted, his brother James became King James II. Even though he had fought hard to make sure James succeeded him, King Charles knew exactly what would happen when he did. He predicted that James would ruin himself within 3 years. His calculation was perfect. James lost no time returning England to the Catholic faith. Protestants seethed as he gave Catholics important government and other official posts. They gritted their teeth in rage as James opened negotiations with the Pope to return the English Church to his jurisdiction. The only comfort James's opponents had lay with his 2 daughters, Anne and Mary. Both were Protestants. Mary was married to the prominent Dutch Protestant William of Orange. So even if they had to put up with the Catholic James for now, he would be succeeded in time by a Protestant reigning queen, maybe 2. Then, in 1688, something happened that changed the whole picture. Let's delve deeper into this turbulent historical period with podcasters Fernanda Moura and Lance Ralston.
King Charles II, the king who restored the monarchy in England in 1660 and reigned until his death in 1685. But what happened next? To better understand the political and religious tensions of the period, Charles II did not have any legitimate children who survived to adulthood. Despite having several mistresses, he did not have an heir within the confines of his legitimate marriage to Catherine of Braganza, a Portuguese princess. Charles II's lack of a legitimate heir contributed to the complexities of the royal succession and heightened political tensions during his reign. As next in the succession line, Charles' younger brother James was crowned James II of England and King James VII of Scotland. After the execution of the absolutist King Charles I, the monarchy was abolished and the Commonwealth of England was established as a republic. James spent this period, also called interregnum, in exile in France. On the 31st of December 1660, following his brother's restoration, James was created Duke of Albany in Scotland to go along with his English title Duke of York. When James returned to England, James married Anne Hyde. She was the daughter of Sir Edward Hyde, later the Earl of Clarendon, who served as Charles II's chief minister. She, therefore, was not of royal blood, and this engagement was not seen as adequate for the heir presumptive to the crown. Although at this point, no one actually thought James would become king, because the chances of Charles having a son to inherit the crown were high, but that did not come to pass. The marriage was initially kept secret due to Anne's lower social status and concerns about political repercussions. Nevertheless, the union was publicly acknowledged later. James and Anne had 2 surviving daughters who became very significant figures in English history: Mary, who later reigned as Mary II, and Anne, who would become Queen Anne in 1702. Unfortunately, Anne Hyde's health deteriorated and she died in 1671 at the age of 34. Her death was a considerable loss to James, who was deeply affected by her passing. James remarried 2 years later, this time to someone of royal blood. He married Mary of Modena, an Italian princess. The couple had several children, including James Francis Edward Stuart, who would later be known as the Old Pretender. Mary of Modena was a devout Catholic, and her marriage to James II added to the concerns about a Catholic succession in England. The birth of a Catholic heir intensified fears among Protestant political and religious leaders. James' Catholicism was the main issue during his reign. England was then a Protestant country since the Reformation. It had had a brief return to Catholicism with Mary I, but Queen Elizabeth re-established Anglicanism. James's open Catholicism created tension. His efforts to promote religious tolerance, however, extended not only to Catholics, but also to dissenting Protestant groups, which caused concern among the Anglican establishment. Furthermore, James's attempts to increase the power of the monarchy and his efforts to appoint Catholics to key positions fueled tensions with Parliament and the broader political establishment. This tension rose and led to what became known as the Glorious Revolution, a series of events that took place in England between 1688 and 1689, resulting in the overthrow of King James II. The Glorious Revolution was named Glorious because it was relatively bloodless and marked a crucial turning point in English history, solidifying constitutional principles and parliamentary sovereignty. Protestant leaders, alarmed by the prospect of a Catholic dynasty, invited the Dutch William of Orange, a Protestant and husband of James II's Protestant daughter Mary, to invade England. William of Orange landed in England in November 1688 with a relatively small army. Faced with diminishing support, James II fled to France, and William and Mary were offered the throne jointly in 1689. So then they ruled together. James II spent the remainder of his life in exile and continued to claim the throne until his death in 1701.
In 1658, shortly before his death, in a move that seems politically schizophrenic, Oliver Cromwell named his son as his successor. But Richard was definitely not his father. He resigned his post. Parliament then recalled Charles II to England's throne. This brought about a reaction against the Puritans. Although Charles at first sought to find a place for Presbyterians within the Church of England, the new Parliament opposed it, preferring a return to the bishop's episcopacy. The Book of Common Prayer was reinstalled after being out of favor for several years, and dissenters were banned. But such laws weren't able to curb the several movements that had emerged during the previous unrest. They continued outside the law until late in the 17th century when toleration was decreed. In Scotland, the consequences of the Restoration were more severe. With the episcopacy reinstalled in England, the staunch Presbyterianism of the North was challenged anew. Scotland erupted in riot. Archbishop James Sharp, the prime prelate of Scotland, was murdered. This brought English intervention in support of Scottish royalists. The Presbyterians were drowned in blood. On his deathbed, Charles II declared himself a Catholic, confirming the suspicions of many that he'd been an agent of Rome all along, and thus guilty of all the blood of Puritans and Presbyterians. His brother and successor, James II, moved to restore Roman Catholicism as the official religion of his kingdom. In England, he sought to gain the support of dissidents by decreeing religious tolerance, but the anti-Catholic sentiments among the dissidents ran so strong they preferred no tolerance to the risk of a return to Rome. Conditions in Scotland were worse, for James II placed Catholics in positions of power and decreed death for any who attended unapproved worship. After 3 years under James II, the English rebelled and invited William, the Prince of Orange, along with his wife Mary, James's daughter, to take the throne. William landed in 1688, and James fled to France. In Scotland, his supporters held on for a few months, but by the next year, William and Mary were in possession of the Scottish crown as well. Their religious policy was tolerant. In England, tolerance was granted to any who subscribed to the 39 Articles of 1562 and swore loyalty to the king and queen. Those who refused were granted tolerance as long as they didn't conspire against the crown. In Scotland, Presbyterian became the official religion of the state, the Westminster Confession its doctrinal norm. But even after the Restoration, the Puritan ideal lingered and greatly influenced British ethics. Its two great literary figures, John Bunyan and John Milton, along with Shakespeare, long endured among the most read of English authors. Bunyan's most famous work, known by its abbreviated title of Pilgrim's Progress, became hugely popular and the subject of much meditation and discussion for generations. Milton's Paradise Lost determined the way in which the majority of the English-speaking world read and interpreted the Bible.
I'm Mark Vinette, and I hope you're enjoying the ride.